Hey, my favorite transfer cats. We are back for more PIQ action here. This is Transfer Man, and you are listening to 30 Days to Transfer, the podcast where we're going to break down every step of the transfer process into clear, actionable steps. Remembering every outward journey begins with an inward one. Today, we are really getting into the weeds in a practical step towards your transfer. And that's really figuring out your metaphor, your creative way of showcasing who you are in these essays. I know you're probably thinking, well, I'm not that creative, but I guarantee you, follow along with me today. I'm going to show you some techniques. Today, think of it as a creative workshop. We're going to talk about how to find your metaphor, how to start your essay with a powerful story, and why a title is like a bow on a gift. It ties your whole essay together. Kind of like the title of a song. Have you noticed that? Song titles are so important. They set the stage for everything. I'm in love with the shape of you. Ed Sheeran knocks it out of the park in a lot of ways, but especially his titles are so catchy. And that's what we're going to do with your personal insight questions. All right, first, I want to set the stage with this wonderful example from a transfer student who came from Hawaii. And as I got to talking to her, I realized very, very quickly that Hawaii, like the islands, were really important to her development. And I said, well, maybe the islands are like parts of your life. Maybe the island has shaped you, or the islands have shaped you. And we can relate the different areas of your life to the islands. And here's what she came up with. It's called Becoming My Hawaii. Hawaii is an archipelago in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, made up of 8 islands, 9 if you count Las Vegas. It's a Hawaii thing. The tide and wind has shaped each island differently. Maui, my home, is known as the Valley Isle with its beautiful, lush greenery, vibrant culture, and deep-rooted Hawaiian history. Hawaii is more than a landmass to me. It has shown me the power of community, resilience, the beauty of diversity, and has raised me to be who I am today. Hawaii is the sum of all its parts, and so am I. This is the story of my Hawaii. Kind of grabs your attention, doesn't it? Well, she goes into all the different areas of her life, her academics, her family, her beliefs, her community service, her goals, her major, and she relates them to, Oahu and Maui and Kauai and the Big Island and Molokai, all of them. And each of those islands take on the character of part of her life. It was a brilliant metaphor, I thought, and that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, let's talk about the PIQs. First, let's remember what the PIQs are. You're going to be answering 4 of these in the application, and they should be 350 words or less. You get to choose from 8 possible prompts. Actually, as a transfer student, you have to choose the major one. So your other 3 get to be chosen from the other essays that are available to you. For transfer students, these are extra important because they're not just for admissions, but they also are included for scholarships. So when you indicate that in your application, these are going to go with that. The key is that every single response must add value to your application. So there's no negative scoring, like I said yesterday. Each response is either adds value or it's neutral, and our goal is to make all four of these shine. All right, so number one, before we get fancy with metaphors or dialogue, the number one rule, number one rule from Transfer Man: answer the question first and foremost. Okay, it sounds simple, but we don't want to get lost in creative story writing, which I love. We don't want to get lost in that and not actually answer the question. Okay? Admissions readers want clarity. To start by underlining or highlighting exactly what the prompt is asking you to do is a really smart thing. Every sentence you write should circle back to answering that question, and specifically how you're going to be a good fit for the UC. Now let's talk about metaphors. Strong metaphors can give your essay a theme and a sense of cohesion. It makes your story memorable too, right? It's kind of your branding. So here's a metaphor exercise. I want you to do this with me, so hopefully you're not driving. I want you to think about your metaphor, your passion, and your future career. Now, ask yourself, if my major were an object, what would it be? If it were a place, where would it be standing? If it were a journey, what kind of journey would it be? For example, a biology major might say, biology is like a puzzle. Every class I take is another piece coming together. A computer science major might say, coding feels like building a bridge between imagination and reality. A psych major could write, the human mind is like a maze and I've always been drawn to finding the way out. Or, because I teach psychology as well, if I could compare psychology to something, if I could write down, 5 objects that I could compare it to. So what does psychology do? Well, it kind of helps you see what's wrong with people, see what's right with people, see what people are thinking, right? Describe, explain, predict, and influence are the 4 goals of psychology. So what could I compare it to? So maybe what helps me see? Goggles, telescope, glasses, X-ray glasses, right? A microscope. So if I think about that, if I said psychology is a microscope, or psychology is X-ray glasses, or psychology is a telescope, right? How would I extend that metaphor? Psychology doesn't help me see, out into the stars like a telescope does, but it lets me see the inner universe, right? Do you see the metaphor taking shape here? To me, psychology is a telescope. Instead of looking at the stars, it helps me look at the inner galaxies of the mind. Isn't that a better metaphor? It's pretty cool, right? So in my handouts, I have a couple exercises like this where you're going to be taking objects and you're going to be taking verbs and adjectives and combining them in different ways to kind of find that fun metaphor that you might like. Now, we want to use just one metaphor, right? So if I'm in a 350 word essay, I don't want to pack that with metaphors because that gets really confusing. So at this point, we would pause in this episode and I want you to write down 5 objects, images, or comparisons that fit your major and pick the one that feels most personal, most exciting. That's going to be your metaphor, your Hawaii, right? It becomes the thread that you weave through your essay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just really needs to be authentically you. The more authentically you, the better. All right, let's move to a different way to start your essay. So let's say metaphors are not your thing and you're really coming up with nothing there. Let's try a different way to start your essay. And many students make the mistake of starting with a summary or generic statement like, I've always loved science and I want to become a doctor, right? Boring. Where's my little wah wah? No, not that one. There we go. So instead, we are going to drop the reader right into the moment like they've opened a book right in the middle of the action scene. Have you ever noticed how James Bond movies always start with the action scene and then they go to the credits, right? It's so important to hook you. We're going to do the exact same thing. So here's an example of someone applying as a pre-law major. Objection, I blurted out, a little too loudly for a high school debate match. The judge raised an eyebrow and my teammates stifled their laughter. But at that moment, I knew I wanted to spend my life using my voice to defend others. You see what happens there? You feel like you're in the room. You get a sense of this person's personality and their passion, and it connected immediately to the major, law. So also we've got dialogue. We've got some great adjectives in there, right? So this is a way of bringing you into the story. Let's try another example. So when I was a kid, I actually did this. I played school and I would make homework and stuff for the neighbors, right? But let's say you did that as well. Or maybe you played school teacher with your stuffed animals and you want to be a teacher now. Let's start in that story. And your stories can go back to childhood. Your story could start yesterday. You were in an amazing class in your community college with your professor and it just clicked yesterday. So this doesn't have to harken back, many years. So let me give it a shot here. And I'm doing this off the cuff so you can see that this is how we brainstorm. This is how we draft things. All right. Attention class, I said to my stuffed animals as they sat there at the edge of their seat waiting for today's lesson. I didn't know it at the time, but years later, I would become Mr. Cooper, and that was my first day at school, right? Something fun, right? We can have fun with these. I think a lot of times we think we have to be stodgy and very formal and very sound like we're professorial, we don't need to. You can talk in your voice, and again, a little bit of lightheartedness is wonderful in these. Okay, so try this. Think of a powerful moment in your life, connect it to your major or your growth, and write one line of dialogue that you actually said or heard, and use that to open your essay. Start in the story. I say that to my students all the time. Start in the story. Don't report back afterwards like, I walked down the street and I really discovered that I liked to do this. That's starting after the fact. Start right in the story. The folded doors creaked open and I walked into the subway, right? Start in the story. Okay, so let's talk about titles. A title is like a bow on a gift or a title of a song. Again, I talked about that song. So awesome. And it's not required by the UCs by any means. So titles are not required, but it can set the tone and make your essay feel complete, just like a song or a poem or a novel or anything like that. So tips for titles: keep it short and memorable. Connect it to your metaphor or your main theme. And if your essay is about problem solving and coding, your title might be Debugging My Future, right? Pretty cool. It's the first impression your reader gets. And like an interview, when you walk into a room, this is the first thing that precedes you. This is the way it's dressed up. Okay? Final tips. As we wrap up here, here's what to remember today. Number 1, answer the question. 2, try it. Try using a metaphor here and there to give your essay depth. Start with a story or dialogue in at least one of your PIQs to grab their attention. It's pretty neat. And end with a title that ties everything together. Try it. Tomorrow, we're going to be focused entirely on editing, and that's where we're going to take your raw draft and turn it into something beautiful with rhythm, flow, and some literary techniques. Okay? Thank you for listening to today's episode of 30 Days to Transfer. Your homework today is brainstorm 5 metaphors for your major. Write a first line of dialogue for one of your essays starred in the story. Pick a working title for at least one PIQ. So keep drafting, keep dreaming, and I will see you tomorrow when we edit and polish your words and make them shine like the person you are. Take care.